Understanding Shakespeare is tricky, but what can we do to make it easier for ourselves? Let's find out. How's it going, Revision Squad? It's me, Liam, aka Mr. Knight, aka DystopiaJunkie, and in this video I am going to give you my top 5 tips for tackling Shakespeare. Of course, by that I mean understanding the language in his plays, because it can be tricky. Even I find it difficult from time to time, but these are some strategies that I have used to help solidify my understanding of Shakespeare's plays, both as an English teacher but also as an English undergraduate. You might want to take some notes of the things that I say over the course of this video, so make sure that you have grabbed a pen and some paper. And of course, please do not forget to like, comment and subscribe if you find this video useful. Something I want to tell you now before we properly get started is that you should not stress about every single word in one of Shakespeare's plays. Certainly not at GCSE level. What you really need to understand are key scenes, key phrases and key lines of dialogue from the play that you are studying. You are not expected to know every single word from Shakespeare's play, let alone what each and every one of those mean. Right, so if you're going to understand the language in the Shakespeare play you are studying, it is so important that you know the play's plot. By knowing what is happening in the play, you've already won half the battle. You will know that certain characters are arguing, that one is manipulating another, or that two characters are expressing deep feelings of love for each other. If you know what's happening, then you will already have the gist of what the language means. There's a few different ways you could do this, and it depends on how you like to learn best. You could watch a video, an animated summary or super short performance, but one that makes it clear where each scene and act ends would be most beneficial. I'm sure there's plenty of these online, and if you do choose to watch a video, taking notes of what happens in each scene would really help you out. On the other hand, if you don't fancy watching a video, you could also read a plot summary for the play. You can find summaries online, but also lots of good editions of the play will contain plot summaries too. Again, a summary that splits the play up into its acts and scenes would be the most useful, because it will give you the clearest idea about what is happening in each different part of the play. Now, whatever you do, don't just do this once. If you're unsure about what's happening in the play as you're reading it, go back and watch another plot summary, or reread another one, or even go back over your notes on the play. By coming back to the plot summary time and time again, your understanding of the play, as well as its language, should be strengthened, as it'll be in your long-term memory. Okay, second up, if you want to get to grip with Shakespeare's language, you're going to need a good edition of the play. But what do I mean by a good edition? Firstly, you need a copy of the complete play. I'm a firm believer of working with the whole text, even if you don't understand all of it, as I think you're able to make more nuanced connections if you have the whole thing in front of you. Secondly, good can mean different things depending on how tricky you're finding Shakespeare. If you are finding the play to be completely impossible, and by that I mean that you do not understand a single word, then an edition that provides a complete modern translation of Shakespeare's text alongside the Shakespearean original is probably what you need. In order to use this properly, you will have to read the Shakespeare version and the modern version alongside each other and figure out which sentence maps on to which sentence. And of course, when it comes to using quotations, you must remember to quote the original Shakespearean text, not the modern version. No matter how good your analysis of the modern version might be, you're simply not going to be properly rewarded for it, because you need to be quoting and analysing Shakespeare's language. A great resource that provides modern translations is the No Fear Shakespeare website. Now, because relying on modern translations can throw up a few issues, this is in fact a method that I recommend only to those of you who are finding Shakespeare to be impossible. Instead, I think that a glossed edition of the play is much more useful. A gloss is a small translation or definition of a word or phrase, and it can really illuminate meaning for the broader text. This was the method that I always used when studying Shakespeare. There are loads of versions of the plays that contain these glosses, such as the CGP versions of the plays, such as their edition of Romeo and Juliet that we have on screen now. See those blue bits? Those are your glosses. Those will be the bits that really help to clarify Shakespeare's language for you. There's something really important about Shakespeare's plays that you need to remember. They are plays. They are supposed to be performed and watched and viewed. They're not things that you merely read in silence up in your head. If you're finding Shakespeare's language tricky, you need to find a way of watching the play. Now, if you're able to go and see an actual performance of the play you are studying in person, say at the Globe Theatre in London, then that is awesome, and I strongly recommend doing that. But theatre companies may not always be putting on the play that you're studying, certainly not near to where you live. And for many students, travelling to a theatre to watch a performance may not be possible logistically, financially, and so on. I know it certainly wasn't for me when I was doing my GCSEs. But there are ways to work around this. You should be able to find versions of the plays here on YouTube. The Ian McKellen version of Macbeth is particularly good, for instance. The Globe also has an online shop in which you can buy DVDs of the plays. And they even have, and I've just found this out myself, their own sort of Netflix, Globe player, in which you can rent or buy digital copies of the play. Now, whether or not you choose to use YouTube, buy a DVD, or watch a version of the play by some other means, make sure you're watching a version that is as close as possible to Shakespeare's text. If possible, watch one that uses his language, doesn't mess about with the story too much, and is set on a stage. And remember, this is especially relevant if you're watching the Leo DiCap version of Romeo and Juliet. They didn't have cars in Shakespeare's time. So I said that you should be watching the play actively. What does that actually mean? Well, it means that you shouldn't just be sat there, maybe with a bowl of popcorn, munching, checking your phone every 2 seconds. Instead, you should be taking notes and annotating your copy of the play. Pay attention to the emotions of the different characters. In which lines are they sad or happy or angry? Which words do they stress? Which words seem particularly related to their emotions? Who do they direct their lines of dialogue to? This might help to clear up the meaning of some of the lines, or, at the very least, shed more light on the general gist of them. When you're reading or analysing Shakespeare's plays, it's important to pay attention to how he has used punctuation and stage directions, as they can often reveal things about the characters and the play's events that the words alone do not. Shakespeare uses stage directions in a few different ways. This could include if a character is saying their dialogue out loud or as an aside. If it is an aside, ask yourself why. Why are they saying this only to themselves and not to other characters? What are they hiding? Stage directions might also reveal who a line of dialogue is being spoken to. And of course, it can also say how a line of dialogue might be said. Punctuation is super important as well. If a character's dialogue uses lots of exclamation marks, they could be angry, overjoyed, passionate, or shocked. Think about what's happening in the play to help you decide which emotion is most likely. If they use lots of question marks, they could be inquisitive or confused, or they could just be trying to dominate the conversation. If there's loads of pauses, either created by dashes or commas, then they could be uncertain, doubtful, or their thoughts could just be one massive mess. Remember, you do not just have to analyse what characters say, you can also talk about how they say it. Stage directions and punctuation can help you to figure out what language might mean. And my final top tip is to use online resources. 10 years ago when I was taking my GCSEs, there was much less in the way of online resources. You lot, you're much luckier. Now of course, there are loads of edutubers these days, many of whom will have covered various Shakespeare texts. I won't be covering any Shakespeare texts in the 2019-2020 academic year, but I will be making a start on them in the 2020-2021 academic year. So if you're watching this video in September 2020 or later, keep your eyes peeled for those videos. But there's loads of other resources that you can use in the 2019-2020 academic year, such as GCSE Bite Size, which I don't think needs much explanation. The RSC's Shakespeare Learning Zone has loads of interesting and useful resources for many of Shakespeare's plays, including videos from actors discussing how they tackle Shakespeare's plays themselves. GCSE Pod is an amazing resource that a lot of my former pupils used to use a lot. Sadly, I don't have access to it anymore, but if your school has access to it, I strongly recommend that you use it. It has lots of short podcasts that you can listen to that will give you that extra boost when it comes to picking apart Shakespeare's language, as well as your other GCSE texts. If your school doesn't subscribe to this service, nag them. Ask your English teacher, or if you know who it is, nag your head of Key Stage 4. I cannot recommend GCSE Pod highly enough. No Fear Shakespeare, which I mentioned earlier when talking about modern translations of the play, also contains lots of ideas about characters or the plots, and it also unpacks key quotations too. So those are some different resources that you can use that I hope will really benefit your understanding of Shakespeare. So before I tell you my final piece of wisdom, something that I think is important for you to remember, please don't forget to give this video a like if you think it's been useful, comment if you want to ask me a question or for some advice, and please do subscribe to this channel as well, as that helps me out massively. So what is that final piece of wisdom? Well, that wisdom was that Shakespeare, he was having fun. His plays were popular common entertainment back in the day, designed to appeal to people from all echelons of society, from the poorest poor to the richest rich. That means many things, but with regards to his language, it means that there's plenty of jokes, wordplay, silly metaphors, and yes, lots and lots and lots of sexual innuendos. If something looks like it's trying to be a bit funny or a bit rude, it probably is. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I really do hope that it has helped you out massively. If you are revising, please do remember to take frequent short breaks, as a burned out student is not a happy or successful student, which is what I think you deserve to be. So those are my top 5 tips for tackling Shakespeare. But which one tip do you think is going to be the most useful in helping you to get to grips with the bard's language? Is it something that I've listed in this video, or do you have a strategy of your own? Please do let me know down in the comment section below. Cheers.